In Linux terminology, a service is an application that runs in the background waiting for you to use it. So your Linux system has dozens of services pre-installed. Of this, the most well-known is the ubiquitous Apache Web Server, which is used for creating, managing, and deploying web servers. But there are so many more. For the purpose of this lecture, um is of this lecture on services, I have selected just four that are of particular importance to the hacker. Apache Web Server, OpenSSH, MySQL, and PostgreSQL. So in this lecture, you will learn how to set up a web server with Apache, physically spy with OpenSSH, and access with the MySQL. So and store your hacking information with PostgreSQL. So starting, stopping, and restarting services. So before we begin to work with these four critical circular services, let's start by examining how to start, stop, and restart services in Linux. Some services can be stopped and start via graphical user interface in Kali Linux, much as you would on an operating system like Windows or Mac. However, some services require use of the command line, which we will look at here. So here is the basic syntax of services here. Service here, service name, start, stop, or restart here. So this is the basic syntax of managing services. To start the Apache 2 server, web server or HTTP servers, you will enter here service here Apache 2 start and enter your password here. To stop the Apache server, write service Apache 2 stop, like that, and enter your command here, password actually. So usually when you make a configuration change to an application or service by altering its plaintext configuration file, you need to restart the servers to capture the new configuration here, like that, restart here. You will enter here this command. So now that you understand how to start, stop, and restart services from the command line, so let's move on to the four most critical Linux services to hackers. So let's create an HTTP server with Apache Web Server. So the Apache Web Server is probably the most commonly used service on the Linux systems. So Apache is found over 60% of the world's web servers, so any self-respecting Linux administrator should be familiar with it. As a hacker aspiring to hack websites, it's critical to understand the inner workings of Apache websites and the backend database of these sites. So you can also use Apache to set up your own server from which you could serve up malware via cross-site scripting XSS to anyone who visits your site. Or you could clone a website and redirect traffic to your site via use of the domain name system, DNS. So in either of these cases, a basic knowledge of Apache is required. So let's start Apache. If you have a Kali running on your system, Apache is already installed. So many other Linux distros have it installed by default as well. If you don't have Apache installed, you can download and install it from the repositories by entering sudo apt-get install apache 2 and enter your password here. As you can see here, I have an update to do, so I will update here. It's actually not a big update, it's 76 kilobyte update here, so it will complete now. So the Apache Web Server is often associated with the MySQL database, which we will look at in the next lectures. And these two services are very often paired with a scripting language such as Perl or PHP to develop web applications. These combinations of Linux, Apache, MySQL, Linux, and PHP or Perl forms a powerful and robust platform for the development and deployment of web-based applications known as LAMP. So these are the most widely used tools for developing websites in the Linux world, and they are very popular in the Microsoft world too. So where they are generally referred to as WAMP, with the W for standing for Windows. So the first step, of course, is to start Apache Daemon. So let's get started. So in Kali, go to Applications here, Services here. Okay, Services here, and HTTPD here, or we can just accomplish the same from the command line by entering services Apache to actually let's use service Apache to start here. So we start Apache 2 server here. Now that the Apache is running, it should be able to serve up, actually let's enter command here. So it should be able to serve up its default web page. So open our web browser here. It's actually is Firefox, Mozilla Firefox, and enter the localhost domain or localhost domain here. Here, localhost here. And as you can see here, our localhost is working. So localhost is the same as 127.0.0.1. Here, as you can see here, there's redirecting to the same web page because we just start our Apache web server here. As you can see, Apache 2 Debian default page. So this is the default page used to test the correct operation of the Apache 2 server after installation on Debian systems. If you can read this message, it means that the Apache HTTP server installed at this site and is working properly. So let's edit the index.html file. Apache's default web page is at cd var www html and HTML here, and as you can see, there's an index.html. So this is the default web page we seen here. So you can edit the index.html file to serve up whatever information you want. So let's create our own here. So sudo here. Actually, we don't need sudo, right? Mousepad index.html. As you can see, we opened our. Actually, it's read only, so we don't open read only. We will write this file. So note that the default web page has exactly the text that was displayed when we opened our browser to localhost, but in HTML format. As you can see, Apache 2 default page, it works here. So all we need to do is to edit or replace this file to have our web server display the information we want. For example, we can change it. We will change it completely, but for example purposes, I will change it. For example, hacking training course techpins.com, for example, .com. And let's restart our server here. Actually, hacking training, as you can see, hacking training course, we change title of it. Let's change inside of it actually as well. Page header. So here, and here as well. So let's change ups. I'm sorry. Here. So now we can change it actually. Here, let's enter, and as you can see, hacking training course techpins.com here, we changed it. here. So let's delete this HTML file and add a new HTML file. Know that we have this web server up and running at the index.html file open, so we can add whatever text we'd like the web server to serve up. So we will create some simple HTML blocks. So let's create this page here. Let's delete this here, and let's open our tags here. So HTML body tag here, body here. Actually, let's increase it a little bit. HTML body, and let's close it here, body here, and close it here, HTML as well. So here let's add header one, header here, and here, actually header one here and header one here as well. So for example, TechPins is hacking is best to learn from TechPins here, for example. So for example, let's add paragraph here as well. P here. If you want to learn hacking, techpins.com, udemy.com here, for example. And let's add another paragraph here. So you are in the best place to learn something, or hacking especially here. So once you enter the text exactly, or you can change whatever you want here, save file here by Ctrl+save S, clicking in keyboard here, or you can save here just clicking on this here. So let's restart it, and as you can see here, see what happens. So navigate your browser once again and enter localhost or your local IP address here. As you can see here, we change it. So now let's learn how I open SSH and something here, for example, MySQL as well here, and other information here. So in later lectures, we will create a Raspberry Pi application as well here. So our lecture is done here. So Linux has numerous services that are in the background until the user needs them. So the Apache web server is the most widely used, but a hacker should be familiar with MySQL, SSH, and PostgreSQL here for various tasks too. So you will learn more and more MySQL about MySQL, SSH, and Apache server here. So this is was the just basic example here. So in this lecture we covered absolute basics of getting started with these services. Once you are comfortable with your Linux system, I urge you to go out and explore each of these services further.